Hey guys, it's Ross over at the Daily Jaws with another exclusive interview for the 45th anniversary of Jaws 2. Today, we're joined by Gigi Vorgan, who plays Brooke in Jaws 2. Gigi, welcome to the Daily Jaws. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We've got lots and lots and lots to get through. So let's dive in with the first question. Now, can you believe it's 45 years since Jaws 2 was released?
Not really. I don't know how that happened. 45 years. One of my Jaws 2 friends and I were just talking about it yesterday. It's like, where did that go? The fans still love it too, and it makes me so happy.
The Jaws 2 has got a really soft, a real close place, I think, or a deep place in Jaws fans' hearts. Because obviously it was the first movie after the original, the classic, and you guys did a terrific job. Particularly with all of the challenges and stuff, which we'll come on to. Your role as Brooke, how did you get the role?
Well, it's funny. I was an actor as a kid. I did, before at 14, I did commercials. I worked with Jack Benny several times. And I had I did a movie as a kid called Johnny Got His Gun, which was a Dalton Trumbo book. So I did some acting, but it was never my plan to be an actress, because at around 14 they stop hiring kids and they start using 18-year-olds to play younger.
Right.
And when I was after my first year of college, it was summer, and I got a call from my agents who I hadn't heard from in 5 years. I didn't know they had my number. And they said, what are you doing this afternoon? I said, nothing. And they said, can you go over to Universal and read for the director and the producer of Jaws 2? I'm like, okay. And I did. And 2 days later, I left for 6.5 months. I read with Gary Dubin.
Yes.
Eddie.
Well, it's meant to be, clearly. Although you didn't share many scenes with Gary, did you?
Very few. He died pretty early in the movie.
Mm.
And he had to stay the whole time because of interior shots. If it rained, you do an interior shot. And they keep those, for like rainy days. So,
Yeah.
or Gary, he had to walk around and hang out for a couple of months,
Oh. But did he get paid?
So maybe not poor Gary. Okay?
Yeah, maybe not poor Gary. How did you approach the role of Brooke?
I pretty much played myself in the situation. I didn't do a lot of acting work to come up with character and all that. It was pretty much, that's kind of how young actors can do that. If you can imagine yourself in the position, in the world that the movie's in, what's happening, how would you react? So basically, I was doing how I would react if I was in that situation. So it wasn't a stretch.
Yeah. And I guess most people are going to react pretty much the same way if they're being attacked by a giant shark in the middle of the ocean with no way of getting home. I would guess.
Right. But
Yeah.
we had to, we didn't know each other in the beginning, and we had to play like we really did.
Oh, I see. Oh, of course. So you had to build up those bonds and those friendships. And as
Right.
you say,
Until they happened, you have to act those.
yeah. And like you say, you're still friends with sort of many of the cast
So
today,
many.
45 years later, which is incredible. Now, a lot of people might not know this, but apparently you don't like scary movies. So when you got the role of Brooke on Jaws 2, you hadn't even seen the original Jaws.
Um,
So our question is, I guess, now obviously 45 years has passed, and hopefully you have seen the original.
they
Um,
sat me down on location and made me watch it.
oh, did they? What did you think of it when you watched it?
Well, I already had seen the mechanical shark and all that stuff, so it took a little of the sting out.
Yeah,
I don't like scary movies because I hate the jump out scares.
yeah.
They just stress me out. So I choose not to do it. I have some friends who just love scary movies.
Mm.
And so I don't go to the movies with them very often. I saw it, it was great, but it wasn't as scary because I knew it was the same kind of shark.
Yeah. Yeah,
We were,
absolutely. I guess once you've seen sort of, you've been to the puppet show and you've seen the strings, it's not as effective, is it? I guess.
and they had, the shark, and then they had just the shark head, and they had just the fin,
Mm,
and they had a lot of different parts of the shark that, they didn't always use the same big shark for every shot.
yeah. And obviously, Jaws at the time, I think, was probably still the most successful movie of all time, possibly during the making of the movie. Obviously, Star Wars only came a couple of years later. But did you feel any sort of particular pressure or any specific feeling around sort of being in the first sequel to the most successful movie ever made?
It was an honor, you know what I mean? It was like, I felt it was just, I didn't realize the impact it would have on my life, but
Mm,
somehow I kind of knew that it was important
yeah.
and, uh, and special.
Did you think we'd be here talking about it 45 years later?
Never would have thought that in a million years. I mean, really. Gary Springer and I would walk around New York, we hung out. And, when the movie was out, people would come up to us and go, tell me about the shark. And people recognized us. That was kind of different.
Mm.
Yeah, so I did not. No, I could not ever have imagined that we'd be talking about this 45 years later.
Crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. And Jaws is 50 years old in
I
2 years'
know, Jaws
time.
is having its
Nuts.
yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
It's so great being part of that group.
Yeah, this is the thing that I really like because I watched Jaws 2 when I was a kid. I would have probably been 8 or 9 maybe when I first saw it. And I just really believed in those relationships, that you guys built up. So when it actually got towards the end of the movie and obviously people started to die, oh man, I was feeling for you guys. I genuinely was. And to your point about just building up these relationships, and obviously, you guys didn't know each other from the start, but obviously you've, formed these long-term friendships. But during that production, particularly, it's like 'cause obviously there was a lot of difficulty on the production. Obviously, there was a change in directors and a very different
I came
shift in
on with the
tone
new
direction.
director. I came on with the new director. Obviously, it was a change, and everybody that had been there already was a little trepidatious about what's it going to be like now, et cetera. Who are
Mm,
these people? And some people were fired and
mm,
replaced. I replaced somebody,
mm.
fortunately, for that person. I think it took a minute for everybody to get to know me and trust me, but maybe just a minute.
Well, that's good to hear because one of the things that we'd heard about, and we're hopefully going to speak to Gino about this because he'll be able to shed some light on it. But obviously, the other star of the movie was Roy Scheider, and from what we understand, he didn't really want to do the movie. It was sort of more of a contractual obligation for him
Right.
rather than actually something he really wanted to do. What was it like working with Roy, and did you pick up anything regarding that sort of attitude from him at all?
Mm, a little bit. A little bit. I mean, look, I understand. He did that. He signed a 3-picture deal
Mm,
and did Jaws. But in between that Jaws and Jaws 2, he did big movies like Marathon Man. He became a star, or well,
mm,
he was a rising star. And I don't think he wanted to step back and do a movie with a fish
mm.
necessarily. But he did a good job. He didn't take the job and then not do what's needed. He's a professional. So I think what happened was he made it 2 for 1. Like,
Yeah,
instead of doing
that's
2 pictures, I'll do this picture, but that has to count as 2.
Yeah, that's what we understand to be the case as well. And I think to your point as well, just about the performance that he delivers. Obviously, they're two very different performances when you look at Jaws to Jaws 2. Obviously, he's sort of growing into the new Brody during the first movie, but this one, he's almost having that sort of PTSD. This is his worst
Yeah,
nightmare coming
no, I
true
think he
again.
did a great job. I do. I think
Yeah.
Roy really played it well, and he had to do it without, Quint and without the old cast, except for his wife. Yeah,
Too.
Lorraine Gary is lovely. She was lovely.
Everyone says she's just the nicest, greatest person. She's
Yeah,
absolutely lovely,
really.
apparently. Yeah. But I think to your point as well, it must be strange stepping back into a sequel where you're sort of more of an established star now because of the previous movie. So there's a huge amount of expectation, but then also you don't have your normal supporting cast around you. So again, Roy's not here to answer the question, but we can only speculate there may be a slightly different pressure for him, and obviously the sudden change in production, director, script, and everything else. And then I think from what we understand, the main conflict was with the director, because apparently he wasn't giving Roy the attention that he felt he needed just as an actor, let alone a star. But at the end of the day, he turned in a fantastic performance. I think it's on par, if not slightly better than the Jaws, because he had a little bit more to play with in terms of that character's trauma.
He had more meat to bite into, as they say.
Exactly. Tell us about working with the mechanical shark, because obviously the sharks or Jaws are always a problem, whichever director seems to work with them. What was your experience of working with the sharks?
Ocean movies are difficult with or without a shark. Boat movies, because you set up the shots, and there's the cast and our boats. We're kind of set up for the shot. Then they have to get the shark boat, and it's a boat pulling the shark. God, I hope I'm not ruining anybody's spoiler alert. It's not spoiler a real alert. So, then they'd have to have so we had sailboats. The shark boat was not a sailboat, but they had to set up so the shark or the fin or whatever was menacing us. And then we have our thing. So you set up a shot, it could take an hour and a half, 2 hours. And the wind changes.
Yeah.
Now you have to reset up the shot.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of time and work put into each shot. And then there's a part of the movie, you may recall, where we're all sailing and having fun and laughing and throwing water balloons and all that. The montage, that was directed by Joe Alves.
Yes.
And that was considered second unit. And he did that. And that was fun. We had fun doing that. But how do I feel about the shark? I was glad he worked. I was glad the shark was working.
Yeah.
Every day that it worked.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think because Jaws 2 and Jeannot's vision for the movie was, we all kind of know what the shark looks like from the first movie, so let's try and do something interesting with it and show more of it. And I think some of the sequences with the shark
they didn't show so much in the first movie.
No, not at all. It's only on screen for about 4 minutes, and a lot of that is towards the end of the movie. Whereas in Jaws 2, you see the shark a lot more, very much more early on, but I still think they did some really interesting stuff. And Joe Alves was telling us that it's effectively the same shark, but they refined it to make it a lot more reliable and just easier to operate, which was great. And I think they achieved some amazing stuff. And talking of sharks, obviously there was rumors of a real life shark incident on Jaws 2. Apparently a hammerhead shark began circling one of the boats. Is that true? Can you verify that?
Yes, I can verify that. I was on that boat. It was a catamaran, so you're kind of
wow.
And it was one of those situations where the shot was set up and then the wind changed. So we were out there for hours, and I don't know, I wasn't the first to notice it, and I don't think it was just one, but there were some sharks started circling the catamaran.
Yeah.
And we had walkie-talkie. We're like, okay, we're ready to come in now. There's sharks, and it's cold, and we're done here. And well, here's a little fact you may know from someone else. Instead of getting us off the boat, they sent Courvoisier. Here, relax. It's okay. They're not going to do anything. And it's true. They didn't. Because I think sharks, when they see something large, although who knows, because they eat boats. There was just a news about a shark jumping on a little sailboat somewhere. I don't know if that was Cape Cod or
there's also killer whales who are training each other to sink boats as well. I think the animal kingdom have basically had enough of us. I think that's what's happening.
The story about the whales was freaky.
Mad.
But so yeah, that's true about the shark circling.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for verifying that, because there have been sort of little factoids online and you're never quite sure what's true, but obviously you were actually on that boat. So
That I
thank you.
remember.
Well, let's talk about something a little bit maybe slightly happier. What's your favorite memory from shooting Jaws 2?
Mm. Well, I can tell you my least favorite.
Go on then. What was that?
There's a scene in the movie there's a scene where I am looking horrified.
Hmm.
And we shot that in late November, so it was cold. And all that horror on my face was because I knew I was going in the water.
Was it how cold was it? Was it like freezing cold?
I don't know, it was freezing. I had a wetsuit on under my clothes.
Oh, okay.
Many of us did.
So
It
that's
was
something.
warm when we started. It's the panhandle of Florida, very tropical.
Yeah.
Started in the summer, but as the months passed, and we hadn't really done the smash up scenes where everybody falls in the water. Let me think. My favorite. There's so many good times. Well, in the movie, I guess there were. I love the opening, the party.
Hmm.
That was quite an interesting segment to shoot.
Why was that interesting to shoot?
Well, we had just gotten there, and it was complicated. There was a lot of different places, and you had the kids, us, at different situations, and some were in the band, and maybe we hadn't just gotten there because I already knew Annie Dusenberry pretty well. She looked amazing. Anyway, that was a fun scene. I had a great time, really. It was like being at movie camp.
Mm,
Oh, I'll tell you something great.
go
When
on.
we got there, the first whole month, we did not shoot a thing. We learned to sail. Every day we had sailing lessons. We had
Yes.
we had to tie knots, and anyone on the crew could stop you and say, tie me a this knot or tie me a that knot. And you had to do it, but nobody really did that. And so, yeah, it was 4 weeks of sailing camp.
And is it correct that you guys, because you really loved learning to sail and you really liked the lady that was teaching you, that you got her a part as the bar
She did.
lady in the club?
Yes. Yes, she did. I didn't
Amazing.
personally get to that job, but we all loved her.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Can you still tie knots? Can you tie a sheep shank?
You know, somebody asked me that not too long ago. I would have to say not without watching someone do it.
Well, I've done a video on it.
Probably you do. Send
Yeah.
it over. Send it over because that'll be very useful in my life right now.
Yeah, because that's what you need. Because when you're on dry land, you need to be able to tie all these knots,
Well,
right?
actually, I live on the Hudson River
Oh,
and
really?
I ride on the river and I see a lot of sailboats go by. And there's a sailing school in New
Oh,
York on the river. So I think about it. I might do it. I love sailing. I've loved boats ever since Jaws.
oh, that's so cool to hear.
Sail trips and boat trips, I love them.
Because I was going to say one of the questions we had was, what's your relationship with the water after starring in Jaws 2? But it sounds like you've got a great relationship with the water.
I do. I went sailing. I've sailed in Bali. I've sailed in, Florida and the Keys and the Bahamas. It's lovely.
I got into scuba diving because of Jaws. It's just such an amazing way to explore that world, you know. But every now
Yeah.
and again, my mind will always just, I don't know, flip the switch and just play the Jaws theme, even though I'm 3 feet under the water.
While
Every
you're,
now and again,
while you're down there,
while I'm down there, yeah, it's just like Ross, stop this,
funny,
stop
funny.
this. So with Jaws 2, apparently more shark deaths, or sorry, teen deaths were filmed. Now, did you make it all the way to the final cut, or did you film a death scene?
I did not film a death scene. Brooke was going to make it all along.
Of course she was. Of course she was. Many people have compared Jaws 2 to sort of like a teen slasher film. Do you see it in that way, sort of like in the vein of Halloween and the Friday the 13th movies, or do you see it as something slightly different?
To be honest, I think Jaws and Jaws 2 stand alone as a genre. It's there, it's really about man versus beast.
Mhm.
It's really about Roy Scheider versus this shark. And in Jaws 2, you get the feeling the shark is pissed at Roy. It's not the same shark, obviously, but well, that led to that title for Jaws 3, The Revenge.
It was Jaws 3D and then Jaws the Revenge, which was the fourth one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't see the fourth one. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Is it? Okay.
It's okay. If as an actor, you'll really appreciate the acting in it. But Jaws the Revenge, it starts off really, really, I think actually pretty well. You know, the first half an hour or so when they're establishing things, and then it just kind of goes left at the traffic lights and just off the cliff. It goes mad, but it's absolutely brilliant.
I've never seen it. Maybe I should see it. It might be fun.
Oh, honestly, if you do watch it, let me know. I'd love to know your opinion on it. I really would. So Carl Gottlieb was the screenwriter on Jaws and Jaws 2, but you actually went on to work for him when he directed Caveman. Now, what was that like?
Caveman was a lot of fun. We were in Mexico for about 3.5 months. And well, on Jaws 2, I became good friends with Carl and his wife, Allison, who would come to the set often. And so I would hang out with Allison, and, you know, I had a lot of days that I had time for that. And we got to be good friends. And then after the movie, you know, they were older than I. But they kind of they had all these really interesting friends. Carl Gottlieb had been in the committee with Steve Martin and some very talented comedians. And he and Steve Martin had written on the Smothers Brothers. And so everybody from the committee kind of filtered out into the film business, and they were fairly successful. So they kind of introduced me to this scene, the Hollywood scene, because I was a journalism major in college. I hadn't intended on continuing to act.
And it's great when you've got that kind of relationship with someone. I mean, I've interviewed Carl a couple of times, and he's just so knowledgeable, and he's so, I think the word I'd use is humble and magnanimous, I think, in terms of his success.
I like to use the word ambitious.
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 Ambitious. I like that. I like that. Ambitious. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that. Can I use that word? Is that your word? Have you copyrighted that?
I haven't copyrighted it, but
obviously, as we know, it's 45 years since Jaws 2, so you might have had a little bit of time to think about this next question. But what do you think is the legacy of Jaws 2 in terms of the film itself?
Well, I think it really solidified the concept of the sequel, because, you know, I don't know how many people were doing sequels at that time. But after Jaws 2, you know, everybody did sequels. Star Wars certainly did. What was out at the same time? Animal House was around the same time as Jaws 2.
Yeah, I think it's about a year later. I think so.
Yeah, I think they were in production at Universal because after we left Florida, we did some scenes. We pick up shots at Universal Studios in LA. The tank. And so legacy, I would say the legacy is it started the sequels. And it's just it was so powerful to people. I mean, Jaws 1 definitely, but Jaws 2 carried it on. And, you know, I know people who don't go in the ocean because they saw Jaws and Jaws 2.
Yeah, so do I. They still struggle.
Yeah,
yeah, no, I know a few people who won't.
Now they're showing all these shots on the news of sharks. You know, they see these aerial shots, sharks circling people on, you know, surfboards.
Yeah. And there's some fantastic stuff like drone footage now, where you actually just watch the same species in the Jaws movies, the great white shark, and they're just there swimming around. They don't generally attack people like you saw with the hammerheads on the boat during Jaws 2. Generally, sharks are just curious. They're trying to figure out what that is because it's in their territory and it's their job and it's their instinct to inspect and try and understand these things. Very rarely will they actually try and bite and attack someone. But I think to your point, that's kind of what we see in the news a lot, though. Sharks doing amazing things, you know, jumping onto boats or whatever it is, and we only generally hear about shark attacks or shark encounters or however you want to phrase it.
Because when there's kids kicking and the sharks may get defensive, and
Yeah, that's exactly what they pick up on. Yeah, and that was one of the things that was highlighted by the the scientist Matt Hooper in the original Jaws about when people go swimming.
I think I was in Bora Bora. It was soon after I got married, and we went on a shark feeding cruise. And what you do is there's maybe 30 people on the boat, and you get in the water and you all hold on to this yellow rope.
Mm-hmm.
And the shark, and so we're in the water, they say, hold on to the rope and you'll be fine. Don't let go, don't freak out, just hold on to the rope. So we're holding on to this rope, many, many people. It's a long rope. So we look like a long animal to the sharks.
Yeah.
And so then they throw raw meat into the water and sharks come.
Okay.
My husband, my newlywed husband, got a little freaked out when, I mean, these were sharks and they were coming right at us and eating this meat and like right in front of us. He let go of the rope and swam back to the boat. It was fine. But still, I couldn't believe it. So I guess they see you as a large animal, larger than they.
I guess so. I think though, with as long as you're still and their focus is on the chum or the bait or whatever you want to call it, because they're going to follow their nose. That's where the action is, as far as they're concerned. They're just going to eat that food. There's footage of people hand feeding sharks now. But again, your husband took what he felt was the appropriate,
I guess he
appropriate
thought
steps.
freak out, swim back to the boat.
Well, hopefully the boat was big enough.
Enough boat, and it was close enough.
That's the main thing, I guess. What about the personal legacy of Jaws 2 for you? Obviously, you mentioned that you've made some great friends, but beyond that, what other what other impacts personally has Jaws 2 had on your life?
It had a big impact because I was not acting anymore. I hadn't talked to my agents in 5 years or 4 or 5 years, and I kind of was done with that. And I was writing, and I had always been writing. And I never imagined I was going to be acting again. And then Jaws 2 happened, and I thought, well, let's see. Go do this movie, have a great time, travel, and excitement and a lot of money versus another semester at college. And I thought, well, that can wait. I'm going to do it. And then after that, so basically it started my acting career as an adult.
Yeah.
And I acted for about 10 years. And then, but integrated the writing towards the end of that.
So you were able to sort of transition from one to the other.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing scripts, and I tend to have beginner's luck. Where it's like with Jaws, I did this big movie and then I'm chasing it, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So I had sold my first script, and I'm like, okay, and it's not really easy to make it as a screenwriter either. I mean, it takes a lot of work and sweat, and you have to find the right people. It's not the easiest thing to fall back on. It's not like I went, oh, I need something safe to fall back on. I'm going to write. The whole acting thing, and I loved it, and I studied. As an adult, because actors can have little tricks, like things that help them cry or whatever, but you can't count on that.
Yeah,
you have to have some craft. That little song you can play right before a scene that helps you cry stops working.
Well, have you heard the story about Eli Roth on the set of Inglourious Basterds?
No.
Have you seen that movie? So Eli Roth plays the big beastie character, in the American squad that's led by Brad Pitt. And there's a bit when he has to come out of a tunnel with a baseball bat, and he has to basically bludgeon a Nazi to death with this bat. And he said he was finding it really difficult to get angry, because Eli Roth actually was inspired by Jaws. That's why he got into movie making, and he's actually got a documentary about sharks called Finn out as well. I mean, he's super passionate, so it ties in beautifully with the interview. But apparently what he did to get himself in the mood to get really, really angry and upset, he listened to some music, and that music was I think "Oops, I Did It Again" by Britney Spears, and
That pissed him
it got him
off.
absolutely in the moment. He just listened to it over and over and over again, yeah, until he just couldn't take it anymore. And Quentin was like, "Action," and delivered a great performance. So, just with the writing as well, you and the screenwriting particularly, which segues beautifully into my favorite question that I ask everybody. What would be your 60-second Jaws movie pitch for a sequel, a prequel? It could be something that comes directly after Jaws 2, ignoring Jaws 3D and The Revenge. It could come straight after the original movie.
It could be we all have a reunion in Amity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have a high school reunion because we all were supposedly teenagers on the island, and it's our 40 reunion or 30. And we bring our kids, and they go out on the boats, and they face the shark. Yeah. What do you think? Shall we pitch it?
I think that's a great idea. Hang a minute. I've got Spielberg on speed dial. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Steve, yeah, we found it. We've got the winner. Yep. All right, cool. Yeah. No, it was my idea. No, yeah, definitely my idea. Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll be in touch. Bye.
Okay.
Sorted. Thank you. Thank you, Gigi.
Ambitious.
Jaws, the Humbitious.
Jaws the reunion.
Jaws, the Humbitious Reunion.
Or
There we
Jaws
go.
just reunion, and this time we're going to get the shark first. I don't know. Let's drop that. We add that.
We'll figure it out, but I love the idea. In terms of the sequels, obviously you were in Jaws 2, and you said you haven't watched Jaws: The Revenge yet. What did you think of Jaws 3D?
I thought it was a really good effort,
Mhm.
and I thought the acting was good. And
This is a this is a funny question. Obviously, Jackie, who was played by Donna Wilkes, did an awful lot of screaming in Jaws 2. How long did it take for your ears to stop ringing?
well, what? She screamed loud and long, and I mean, I did my own fair share of screaming,
Mm.
and it was like a tiny pinch compared to what she had to do.
Yeah, she
But
did a lot of screaming.
yeah, so I think, I wasn't there at her audition. I'm sure they had her screaming for this audition. That's what she does.
Yeah,
And I think she did a good job.
yeah. To be honest, I think she's a little bit unfairly judged in terms of the character. I think the acting is great, and obviously that's her character's reaction, and I think she played it brilliantly. You all know what a great actress Donna Wilkes is, so yeah, I think it's just one of those unfair things that sometimes comes out of Jaws 2. A lot of people make fun of it, but me, I actually think it's actually quite a nice contrast to some of the other reactions in the movie. So, final question, and this is one that we probably all want to know the answer to. Would you like to play charades?
Anytime, anywhere.
All right, let's go.
Down for that line. Sometimes I get at these signing conventions just because it's fun to get together with the gang
Yeah.
and make money. So often people ask me to write that, and happy to do it.
Well, we'll let the fans know that you are always up for a game of charades anytime.
I rock at charades.
Oh, do you? All right, let's go. Let's play now. Let's play a quick round now.
It'd be painful for you. I just can't.
You sure?
Yeah. I can't inflict that on you.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let the fans do it instead at the conventions. Gigi, thank you so much for joining us on the 45th anniversary of Jaws 2. It's been fascinating to hear your ideas about new Jaws movies and having you sort of reminisce on some of the memories of the making of the movie. So it is customary for me to leave the last word with the guest. So is there anything that you'd like to say to the Jaws fans out there around the world watching now?
Thank you. Thank you for being a fan. Thank you for loving the movie. I still love the movie, and I'm so happy when I meet people, when I meet the fans. That's why I go to those things. I love it.
Oh,
And it makes me feel good that I was able to make people happy.
perfect. Gigi Vorgan, thank you again so much. Guys, I've been Ross for the Daily Jaws on this really special day, the 45th anniversary of Jaws 2. Until next time, I'll drink to your legs, and farewell and adieu.
Bye.
If you love Jaws, sharks, and shark movies, then please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and also visit our website, thedailyjaws.com, for all the latest Jaws news and stories.